What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Simple Songwriting. We are doing another metal song today, a pretty cool one, LosT by Bring Me the Horizon. So this was their third single off of their seventh album, Post-Human Next Gen, which was released back in 2023 on May 4th. It's a pretty cool song. I have a few issues with it. I think that this song does a lot of things right, especially from like a conventional songwriting perspective. But there's just there's a few topics I want to get into regarding it. And I think it's a good place to like talk about maybe like the state of metal and like where we're kind of at with metal right now. Because again, I think this song does a lot of things really well. It's obviously produced very, the production is insane, that you can tell that they went through the song like second by second and made sure that it was all brushed over with a fine tooth comb. But there's something that's kind of missing in it. It feels a little hollow to me. And that's kind of what I want to dive into. If you're new to the show, we go through the song in chronological order, and we're just going to go section by section and talk about every single aspect of the song. So let's just start at the beginning. Let's get going. All right, so right off the bat, when you think of like metal music, that is not what you think of. You don't think of something like that. It sounds super fun, hyper poppy, girly. It's very, almost like Korean pop or something like that. It's borderline EDM. It's just not what you would normally expect when you think of like, yeah, this is a heavy metal song. So right out the gate, we're kind of doing something a little bit different, especially for a band as heavy as Bring Me the Horizon. And it does set the tone for the song. This song goes through a lot of it has a lot of elements like that are depressing, but it is ultimately kind of a fun song. And so starting the song off like this, I think is pretty good for setting the tone. But also it's the main musical motif throughout the song is that little dun, 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 dun. So yeah, it's just, we're getting started quick, and it's quick too. This song is very fast paced, very like ADHD. So getting that tone set with a section like this works really well. Now the synth is very clear and obvious, but there is also a like electric drums playing through that too. Listen for the drums this time. So then we bust into the heavy intro, which brings in a real drum kit. This intro is essentially the music for the chorus. I've talked about this in other songs, but this is a very common thing, and it's good. It's common for a reason, because it's a good way of getting the listener familiar with the music of the chorus really early, so that it sticks out more in their heads when they or it's more familiar to them when they actually hear it. And then the melody that gets sung, so this is the instrumental chorus, right? But when the singer comes in, you already are familiar with the music, and so the melody will actually stick in your head a little bit better. This is something that like a lot of bands do, a lot of artists do. Taylor Swift does this. Linkin Park does this on a lot of songs. You bust into the song really heavy with the music that will be played for the chorus. So yeah, now that synth pop melody, actually, real quick before we get ahead of ourselves, let's just play this whole intro. All right, so there's the whole intro. It's nothing too crazy, right? It's kind of I mentioned Linkin Park earlier, but they're actually doing Linkin Park compositionally as well. So they've got rhythm guitars playing the chords, one in the left, one in the right? But then they have octaves playing over that to give it more flavor, a little bit more layers. And by octaves, I mean like on guitar, the na 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 na. Yeah, listen for those octaves here. So the octaves are actually playing like over the chords changing, and so that again, that's a cool thing where like if you have one note that you're playing here, but then your chords actually change under that one note, it gives it a really cool flavor, and it makes that note seem really impactful. But it's like I don't want to call it like a simple thing, but it kind of is. It's a simple way to give this to make this a section like this really stand out and give it a little bit more depth, as opposed to having just rhythm guitars playing, right? You just have this one little octave guitar kind of lightly mixed in the background that gives it a little extra flavor. And then if it plays the same note, it kind of maintains the same energy, but then the chords can change over it, which actually change the interval of that note in relation to the chord that's being played, which gives that single note kind of an evolving place in the music, even though it's the same note. If you don't know music theory, that might not make sense. If you do, that makes perfect sense, but that's essentially what's happening. They're playing the same note up here, but then changing their chords underneath on the rhythm guitar. They're also doing that synth pop melody that we heard in the intro at a lower volume. Let's listen to that real quick. It's the same thing that we heard before. So that's what I mean, right? It's like you set that motif up, and now this section, even though it's a whole new, like if you're listening to this song for the first time, it's a whole new section, but you're already kind of familiar with it, or it doesn't sound too crazy or out of nowhere, because you have you're playing the same melody or the synth is playing the same melody just at a lower octave over it, right? So yeah, that's pretty much. Oh, and then they bring in a real drum kit, right? And the drums are playing kind of a standard beat, nothing too crazy. Again, nothing too crazy, right? So it's overall, I'd say that this intro is it's not bad. It is just a little generic though. Like it's not doing anything crazy. It's just setting the song up. So I don't have too much to say about that, but I do want to talk about this right here. So yeah, that type of thing. This song overall has this kind of like hyper ADHD vibe to it. There's lots of little random synth noises, mixing effects, mix changes where things cut out and come back in, stop and start really fast. It's very, which fits the theme of the song, right? Or the kind of the setting and the idea of the song, mentality. I think that's the right word. The mentality of the song, which is this feeling of being lost, right? And so everything just feels a little chaotic, and so the song successfully captures that. But I want to compliment that. Like, that's good, and that's what I meant, where like they definitely went over the song with fine-tooth comb to make sure that all the production was on point. The thing that I do want to point out, and I think it's a good example here, right here in this intro, is that holistically, when I was looking through the song and listening to it a little bit more, I did get to a point where I felt like all of those little random noises and gimmicks were actually being used to cover up the fact that the song is a little generic, or more some of the more generic elements of the song, right? So it's kind of this catch-22, right? Where on one hand, you've created this song that is about, it's a very ADHD song. The lyrics are ADHD. It's all about being lost and crazy, right? So then you have these elements, these random mixing noises, or these little transitions like this, right? Just this little, where everything's heavy and then everything just totally cuts out, and then there's this little synth sound, and then it comes back in for the verse, right? And so these things simultaneously make the song more interesting and show that there was a lot of work put into the song. But then on the flip side, I think that they also expose some of the more generic elements of the song. So that's kind of that's just something I've noticed with it. We're probably going to get into that a little bit more later on, specifically at the breakdown, but I just wanted to note it here because, you know, something like that, that little pause or that little transitionary synth thing is, it's just fine. It doesn't really, like, it's not like mind blowing. It's not crazy. It's just there just to be the gimmick, just to keep things busy and moving, right? Just to kind of take you off your feet a little bit. So yeah, with that said, that does bring us into the first verse. So yeah, we'll talk more about that in a little bit, but that brings us into the first verse. So let's just let that play.
Watching Evangelion with a big fat slug of ketamine. I lost the plot a little while ago. My dog just died, my friends hate me. I saw myself on MTV. And my ego is not my amigo. Oh, maybe.
All right, so there's our verse. So right off the bat, like, this verse has a, you know, like a cyberpunk feel to it. There's this droning synth, kind of the main musical element, at least right at the start, is this really like kind of aggressive droning synth, just like, you know, listen for it right here.
Watching
Hear that? And it goes down. So that's like really the only like musical section happening, at least at the very beginning. A lot of other instruments and things and sounds come in, but it's just this, and I actually really like that. I think it's kind of an interesting, you know, you wouldn't normally think to do that, right? And it's not really bassy, but it kind of is too. It's just this, and so yeah. But having that over the electronic punk drums as well, again, gives it very cyberpunk feel, right? Yes, yeah. So yeah, the lyrics as well. I'm going to talk about the lyrics in more detail, but they do right off the bat place us right into the modern day or even the future, right? Like, which I think is a big theme of the album, or it's kind of the setting and environment of the album. So yeah, it's pretty good. Like right off the bat, we're put into a setting, and I really like that. Now halfway through the verse, we start to get more noises come in. Like we get these little random synth sparkles, right? So that's again, I mentioned like these little noises and production effects that they do. Those little synth sparkles don't actually have like a melody to them. There's not really like, you can't point out exactly what they're doing because it's just this kind of noise, but it does elevate the section and keep us in that theme and idea of like cyberpunk ADHD craziness, right? And it's more interesting than just like a generic rise, like, you know, like that they do in pop songs. So again, it's kind of this, like I said, there's a catch-22, right? On one hand, it's a little cliche, like there's not really anything super gripping or engaging about it. It's just this noise that's there, but it is, you know, it's not an unappealing noise, and it shows the effort that was put into the song, and it does keep it interesting. So it's not bad. I don't want to say it's bad. Please don't think that, but it is an interesting, it exposes a little bit of a problem with the song, which again, I'll get into later. So anyway, we get into the second half of the verse. Again, I'm going to talk about the lyrics holistically, but we get into the second half of the verse. We're going to talk about all the music first. So now we start to get this, you know, this like rhythmic pumping synth, which I really like. Actually, it sounds like it's almost clipping the way that it's mixed in the overdrive on it. So it comes in on the second half, and it's just like boom, 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 boom. Yeah. Again, it kind of portrays like energy bursting out, like bursting at the seams, right? And you hear how there's like, you can hear the boom boom, like the bassiness of that boom boom, But what really sticks out is how there's actually like crackling noises in the left and right ear. It's obviously intentional. They didn't like accidentally make it clip, but they add those little noises to give it the, you know, illusion that it's clipping, right? And if you don't know what clipping means, clipping is when you're audio mixing, right? So when you're mixing audio, everything has like a volume and a sound, and you could just put a sound in there that is so loud that it actually overloads the speakers and overloads your software, and it distorts and crackles, and it sounds, if it's done naturally, it sounds pretty bad. Like it actually distorts the sound, but you can actually control that. And you know, that's how you get like distorted guitars, right? A distorted guitar is essentially like a clean guitar amp that has just that is just going completely overdrive, right? And we've now found ways to do that, you know, purposefully. But that was the original distorted guitar, was a clipping amp to the point where you're like almost breaking the tubes in the amp, right? So we're doing that with the synth here. We're mimicking the sound of an overdriven synth. So play that again, or I'm going to play it again and listen again to the left and the right ears, and how there's like this high pitched like crackling sound in there. So yeah, it's pretty cool. Let's see. We also get the little synth motif from the intro that comes back here in the second half of the verse. So again, like we had a very like droning, sparse verse, and now we get into the second half of the verse, and we've got this overdriven bass. We have the drone still going, but we have this really overdriven bass that's almost like pushing the sound and your speakers to the limit. Then you bring back that like ADHD synth motif, and so what that means is we're building up, we're stacking layers on top of each other to again emphasize that like overloaded, overwhelmed. I don't want to use the word vibe. I hate the word vibe, but like the emotion or the mentality of the song or of the singer, right? The narrator and what he's trying to portray. So it ends up building up until we kind of get this point at the end of the verse where there is like the vocals actually just fully get chopped up. So let's hear the end of the verse again. See, like da 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 da. I think it's chopping up that word amigo, but then shooting it up an octave, right? Or shooting it. Right? So everything's kind of still building, and we're going to see where that goes in a second when we get to the pre-chorus. But now let's talk about the lyrics. So this first verse, these lyrics are super interesting. I actually like them a lot. And to the point where I would say I think they're easily the best lyrics of the song, and they accomplish a lot in a short amount of time. So let me just read them out real quick, because there's only like 4 lines. He says, watching Evangelion with a big fat slug of ketamine. I lost the plot a little while ago. Oh, my dog just died. My friends hate me. I saw myself on MTV, and my ego is not my amigo. All right. So first off, watching Evangelion with a big fat slug of ketamine, right? I normally think stuff like this is corny, right? Like stuff that kind of references pop culture or whatever, and drug references. I think they're usually like I think it's a cliche. You know, I did a breakdown of Ordinary by Alex Warren a few weeks ago, and you know, the fact that he's like talking about his lover and he's like higher than ecstasy, it's like, oh my God, grow up, you know. But in this case, I think it works perfectly. So the song is called LosT, and that it's what it means is like you're feeling hopelessly lost in your own life. Mentally you're lost, emotionally you're feeling lost. It's capturing that, and so this first line sets up the scene of like a drugged up individual sitting around watching old anime. which again, if you want to portray somebody who feels lost, that's a good way to do it. You're doing drugs and you're watching old TV shows, because if you don't know, Evangelion was an anime that came out in the 90s. It's a pretty popular one. I actually just watched it this year. It's a pretty good one. So yeah. Also, I do want to mention that he uses the word he says with a big fat slug of ketamine, and I really like that. I'm a big fan of like using words to create imagery, as long as they fit, right? Like you don't want to just force it in, but like it's kind of like poetry, right? Like your words are actually what set the scene. You know, you don't have the benefit of music when you have poetry. So you actually like if you're reading a poem about the woods and you want to set the scene of the woods, you're not going to talk about the water on the lake, right? You're going to talk about the rustle of the leaves and the crackle of the branches. You're going to use these words that evoke the woods. So in this case, it's like he didn't have to say with a big fat slug of ketamine. He could have said like a big fat hit of ketamine or whatever it is, right? But by using the word slug, I think that it still implies the tone of the lyrics, which it creates that image of a slug, right? Like the person himself is a slug sitting around doing drugs, watching anime, right? So yeah, I think it's actually intentional, and it's cool. I like stuff like that. He then follows that line with I lost the plot a little while ago. I think that mostly could be seen to reference his personal life. Like you've just lost the plot in life, right? But I also think, funnily enough, it could reference what's happening in the show. So that's like the double entendre, right? Watching Evangelion with a big fat slug of ketamine, I lost the plot a little while ago. It's like that. It has a double meaning. He could be seen to just be talking about the show and how he's lost the plot, which funnily enough, if you've actually watched Evangelion, especially like the last 2 episodes, the plot just goes like off the deep end. It's absolute nonsense. They had to make a movie a year later to actually resolve the story, because the last 2 episodes of the show are so like ridiculous. But the main thing here is that he's talking about how he's lost the plot in his life. He doesn't know what he's doing. So yeah, it's a fun kind of playful little double entendre that works. So the next lines are, my dog just died, my friends hate me. Well, let's just talk about that real quick. I think you could almost say that he's layering on the self-loathing just a little thick here, but the lines are really quick and he sings them with this nonchalant attitude. And I think because of that, it actually works. So he's just like, my dog just died, my friends hate me, I saw myself on MTV. It's like he doesn't hone in on them and really, he doesn't like over dramatize them. So normally this type of thing would be like you walk a fine line, right? If you're just, what is it? What's the word? Complaining. It's not complaining, there's another word, I can't think of it, but like you're just indulging, like you're just indulging in your own misery, right? That can get really old, especially in a song. It's like it's not really that fun to listen to. It's not appealing. There needs to at least be a purpose to it, and I think there is here. So yeah, I'm not against the lyrics. I think that he delivers them well and he makes it work, so we're all good for now. So then he gets into, I saw myself on MTV. I think that this is fine. Again, it works, but I do think it breaks the immersion just a little bit. But here's the thing, right? And I talk about this like with Sleep Token, for example, where Sleep Token will claim that they'll do this whole even in Arcadia thing, and it's supposed to be this kind of pseudo Roman setting, and then they will just talk about like touring and songwriting and stuff, and it just, to me, that totally breaks me out of the environment of the album. I lose all immersion, right? And so, and they do that on, like, they purposefully take me out of the immersion. It's one of my biggest complaints with Sleep Token. But in this song specifically, they haven't set up any sort of like past tense environment. The environment is in the modern day, so it's not breaking the immersion in the sense that like MTV, he can't talk about MTV. That doesn't break the immersion. And honestly, if he wants to make the song more about him personally, that's totally his prerogative too. So yeah, I think it's, again, we're like right on the cusp of breaking immersion by saying like I saw myself on MTV, but like it works. It still works. We're still good. So then he says, he finishes this first verse off with, "My ego is not my amigo." Again, it's very fun and playful. It's not, well, it's fun and playful, but it still sticks with the theme of being lost and that self-loathing that comes with being lost, right? So it works, and I actually think it's a little clever, right? So it's a decent line. I like it. So overall, just so we went through the lyrics, but overall, the lyrics do a really good job of setting the scene, setting up the character, setting up the themes. Regarding the tone of the song, the lyrics are fun, they're playful and nonchalant, which is a big aspect of this song and feeling lost, but they're also depressing and self-loathing and kind of dark, which to me is a really good approximation of the song as a whole. I don't think that he layers, the self-loathing on too thick. Unfortunately, I don't think I can say that about the rest of the song, but we're not there yet. So far, we're good. And honestly, I think some of these lines are genuinely a bit clever, like the big fat slug of ketamine and the, "My ego is not my amigo." So yeah, to me, this is a really good example of showing, not telling. So he doesn't need to say like, "I'm hopelessly depressed and I don't know what I'm doing in my life." You can portray that with more interesting ways, right? Like you can just talk about, "My dog died and my friends hate me. I saw myself on MTV." It's like he's explaining these scenarios, but the implication is there. And so he doesn't need to directly tell us how he feels about them because it's pretty obvious, or we can actually interpret that based on him just talking about his life. So yeah, show, don't tell. Don't tell us you're depressed. Explain your life, and then we will come to the conclusion that it's a pretty depressing life on our own, because we are intelligent listeners and we think about our music before when we listen to it, we actually pay attention. So anyway, first verse, really like it. Probably the best lyrics in the song, some of my favorite stuff in this song. So yeah, we then get into the pre-chorus. So I'm just going to let this play out. All right, cool. So first off, the music mostly stays the same on this pre-chorus. There is just like a little glitch sound in the middle of it. Let's see if I can pinpoint it. Nope. Right there. You hear that little glitch sound right there? Right there. So yeah, but other than that, the music is generally the same. And then it ends with this kind of, there's a few moments in the song where I'm like, I'm not sure if that's a guitar or if it's a synth. I think I'm like 90% sure this is a synth, but regardless, it's like a ticking time bomb sound that leads us into the pretty explosive big chorus. So let's just play that though. Hello, dun, 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 dun. So yeah, it's which is cool. That's a cool lead into the chorus, and it's fast, and it sets things up really well. So vocally, the melody changes quite a bit. It becomes a more continuous melody, and then a higher harmony comes in as well, which is pretty normal when you're doing your pre-chorus. Like if your pre-chorus is building up to the chorus, adding in another layer on the vocal, specifically like a higher harmony, or if your lead vocal is very high, bringing in a lower vocal, a lower harmony will help, but pretty normal stuff. So yeah, you can hear it. Let me play it real quick and you can hear that high harmony come in. So yeah, pretty cool. This vocal melody specifically is also way more like intense and driving. It's definitely a step up from how nonchalant the verse was. So like if you just want to compare real quick. You know, it sounds goofy when I sing it like that, but like it's kind of how he's doing it, and it's a little bit on purpose, right? It's kind of woe is me, right? But again, in kind of a fun, like self-aware way, which is why it works. It's not actually like, this is actually a fun song. It's not actually a depressing song. I think people will say, oh, well, it's actually a depressing song hidden as a fun song. I'm like, no, it is a fun song that is addressing depressing topics, right? So ultimately he can kind of play both angles, but this is meant to be kind of a fun song, like a big anthem, right? But anyway, so that woe is me tone is gone in the pre-chorus, because if you listen to how much more energy he has here. You know, he's still in that lower register, so it's not going to have all the full energy as much energy as him like belting out, which is what we get in the chorus, but it's definitely like picking up steam. So let's talk about the lyrics now. So he says, yeah, the lyrics of pre-chorus 1, maybe I don't belong on this planet. This is fine, but this is where I think we start to get a little like cliche and on the nose, but that line alone is just fine. The next line is red crescent moons all over my hand. What he's referencing, if you don't know, is if you're clenching your fist, your fingernails, when your fingernails dig into your fist so much that they actually make your palm bleed, and that's how you get these little red crescent moons on your palm, right? So he's clenching his fist, right? And that's actually what's on the cover for the single cover for this song. It is an interesting line, red crescent moons all over my hand, but that's really about it. It's kind of just a creative way of saying your fists are clenched. There's not really anything deeper here. Like the imagery of like red crescent moon, to me that doesn't really fit the tone of the song. Like just for, this is a very exaggerated example, right? But like you would think of a red crescent moon in a song about a werewolf or something, right? Like the red moon hangs in the sky. So like this is a very cyberpunky song, and I'm just not really, that imagery doesn't quite work. So I'm not really worried about that. So what it ends up kind of being to me is just this. So it's not really that deep. It's just a more clever way of saying like your fists are clenched, which is fine. Again, that's not bad. It's just sort of, I'm very kind of like, okay, sure. It doesn't really do much for me. But it is a more interesting way of saying it. So, I mean, I guess I can give it compliments on that. So finally he says, it's too much to take. I can't understand it. So yeah. He says it's too much to take. I can't understand it. Someone tell me. Yeah. I just think this is super on the nose. And this is where we stop showing and we start telling. And that's where it just gets boring to me. And same with like the someone tell me, it's like, this is like weak begging lyricism. Like tell me what I'm supposed to do. Like we've heard this millions of times. So yeah, again, the pre-chorus is where I think the dip in quality on the lyrics starts to happen. But they're not like bad yet. Whether they get bad or not, stick around. You know, I don't remember exactly what my notes were for it, but yeah. So all of these lyrics, though, in general, fit the theme. But while the verse to me was like clever and illustrative, and used like wordplay and unique word choices, like watching Evangelion with a big fat slug of ketamine, it's like that's really creative to me, and that's really interesting, and it sets up your characters, sets up your theme, sets up your setting very quick. To me, this pre-chorus is very generic and stale. We've heard stuff like this like 100 times before, and we know exactly where it's going. Like, oh yeah, okay, he's depressed and he's complaining about it, right? Which again, I know it's like the name of the song, but still, it's it's too much to take, I can't understand it. It's like you could have portrayed that in a way that was more interesting without just explicitly telling us. So that, let's just get into the chorus now. That brings us into the chorus. I'm gonna play the chorus here real quick.
Tell me why am I this way? Stupid medicine, not doing anything. What the hell is fucking wrong with me? I guess there's no remedy. I'm so terribly lost.
Okay, so let's get into this. We've heard this music before already. It was in the intro, but the drums are a bit busier here. Aside from that, everything else is just essentially in the intro. The only thing that is different musically is that we're missing that synth motif. So the down, that's not playing in this chorus. So melodically, we're going to talk about the lyrics separately, but first off, melodically, the vocals to me are like, they're like straight out of a My Chemical Romance song. It's honestly, like, no joke, it's almost an exact ripoff of I'm Not Okay by My Chemical Romance. I'm not okay. It's like, here, listen to it. Not okay. It's not exact, but it's like very similar, and the songs have a ton of like thematic overlap as well. Like honestly, the theme is almost exactly the same, right? The idea that you are not okay and you're going through it, right? You're lost in the world, and there's something wrong with you. It's like like that was just the first thing that came to my mind, was like, this sounds exactly like My Chemical Romance, and specifically that song. So yeah, I just want to note that. So I think the vocal melody is fine. He does do this kind of like, he does the long notes, and then he does some fast short notes like here. So like that's fine, that's cool. But yeah, that da na 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 na, it's very My Chemical Romance. Interestingly, there are like no vocal harmonies here, which I kind of like. Sometimes people will take their chorus and they just stack the fuck out of it, right? But I think that having a vocal like this on a song like this makes it, or a single vocal take, just makes it sound really raw and intense and personal, which fits the song actually. Okay, so that's the music and the melody for the chorus. Let's get into the lyrics, and this honestly brings me to like my first big topic that I want to talk about. So hold on. Okay, so my first big topic that I wanted to discuss for this song regarding these lyrics is metal needs to grow up. This is one of those things where you look at these lyrics, right? And it's like, I guess there's no remedy, my own worst enemy, why am I this way? What the hell is effing wrong with me? It's like, I just want to remind you, Ollie Sykes is 38. And I know that like it's very common nowadays to think like, well, 38 isn't old, but it's like, okay, these are the types of lyrics that you write when you're a teenager or early 20s, right? Like I mentioned I'm Not Okay by My Chemical Romance earlier, and that those lyrics were written when he was 24, I want to say. Let me just confirm. Yeah, I want to say he was like 24. I could be a little bit off, but yeah, so okay, so let's really get into it. So opposed to the lyrics in the first verse, to me these chorus lyrics are just super generic. They're unbelievably generic, almost to the point of like embarrassment, right? Like this is just cringe to me. And I think the thing that just drives me nuts is like, this is one of their biggest songs in years. This is one of the biggest hits that they've come out with. It is the biggest song on the album. It has over 140 streams on Spotify. it's obviously like a big hit of a song, and the fans really like it. But to me, these lyrics are super on the nose. There's nothing to interpret. They're shallow and cliche. There's not even like a hint of cleverness or art or depth to them. There's nothing to think about. Even when you look at something like My Chemical Romance's I'm Not Okay, those lyrics at least were like kind of engaging and interesting, right? To me, this is just boring and quite frankly bad. We've heard this stuff a million times, like, what is wrong with me? My own worst enemy. Why am I this way? My medicine's not doing anything. It's like, how many times do we need to hear this before people like overall just start to say, yeah, we're sort of tired of this. Like, we've heard it so many times. And that brings me to like my big question, right? When do we actually start to expect our metal artists to grow up, like to mature? What is the age point? So let me, like, what age and what album do we finally say, like, yeah, we're tired of this? Like, this is unacceptable from you at a certain point because you are no longer like 21 writing metalcore, right? So let me preface this because I know a lot of people are probably going to take this the wrong way. I don't mean grow up in the sense that you stop listening to metal or you lose your youthful energy or anything like that. Like, that's not what I'm saying. I mean, look at me. I got long hair. I play guitar in metal bands now, and I have a job and all of that, and I'm in my 30s. I'm not saying lose that youthful energy and spirit that drew you into metal in the first place. I mean, when do we expect the lyrics, themes, and ideas in our music to move beyond adolescent tropes like, what's wrong with me? My feelings are so confusing. I'm my own worst enemy. The voices in my head. I'm gonna break down. Like, and there's endless numbers of lyrics like that, on and on and on and on and on. It's the same theme and idea and tropes over and over again. When do we finally say, like, yeah, you're too old to be singing like that? It's embarrassing. And so I have a few examples that I wanted to bring up because I think it's very easy to sit here and say, well, Cameron, I like that song. Like, I think it speaks to me and my being lost. It's like, okay, so do you think that is an improvement on lyrics and songwriting from the past? Do you think that these lyrics, which I guarantee you, if we really thought about it, we could list 20 songs off the bat that use the exact same lyrics? How many times do you need to hear the same exact thing before you finally say, damn, this is kind of cliche? So just for reference, I want to note a few things, right? Because it's like, well, what else do they talk about? Don McLean wrote American Pie when he was 24 years old. 24. He was 14 years younger than Ollie Sykes when he wrote American Pie. Do you understand the difference there? That's the quality difference. And like, I get it. Maybe as a metalhead, you might not like American Pie, but you cannot sit here and tell me that the lyrics in a song like this, what's wrong with me? I'm about to break down, are better than the lyrics of American Pie. Like, American Pie arguably has some of the most beautiful lyrics ever written. Like, timeless, actual timeless lyrics. And he was 24. Ozzy wrote Crazy Train when he was 31. Crazy Train was one of the biggest rock songs of all time, iconic. And it was just about the insanity of the world, right? It wasn't about his fucking feelings. It was about like everything's so crazy in the world today. And he talks about all of that. James Hetfield wrote Master of Puppets when he was 21. Master of Puppets at 21. Why? Why do we listen to stuff like this and think, yeah, this is our shit. This is the bar. And I don't even think this is like a bad song. In fact, I think there's a lot of good elements to this song. But lyrically, this chorus is embarrassing. This is embarrassing. This is what you write when you're 15. it drives me crazy because like all the songs I just mentioned, right? Like American Pie, Crazy Train, Master of Puppets, they all are songs, they all have deep, meaningful themes about the world that we live in, our culture, our life, and overall just the human experience. And they're deeper than just, oh, my feelings. But nowadays, our most popular artists in metal are people like Bring Me the Horizon and Falling in Reverse, which again, they're not bad bands, but their ideas and their lyrics are quite frankly like the equivalent of like teenage acne. They don't stand out. It's not interesting. They're not particularly good. None of these songs really stand the test of time. Like if you look back like 5-10 years, we're not really going back to songs like this. They're not really making a huge cultural impact in any way. So what are we doing? Like, when do we move past this? Or a better way to say it, when do we actually, like, if we can mentally say, yeah, these are cliche lyrics, because if you can't even get to that point and acknowledge like, yeah, these lyrics are not good and they're not meeting the threshold of quality that we should expect, if you can't even get there, you need to re-examine your quality filter for music and for lyrics. Because if you're not really paying attention, like if you're just like, oh, no, I just want to sing to the song, I don't care about it, it's like, okay, that's great, but at what point do you wake up as a person and as a listener and say, yeah, I need to sort of, this is the same thing I've been listening to for 20 fucking years. Like, is that it? Is that all you want from music? Just to tell you the same thing over and over and over again? No change? And you can't sit here and tell me, I don't know if anyone could sit here and tell me this is their favorite song ever. So I want you to think about your favorite song ever. Like I could name off the top of my head, I love the song The Stage by Avenged Sevenfold. In no universe would I put those lyrics up against these, or these lyrics up against that. It's not even like a comparison. So it's like, when you think about your favorite song and the songs that hit you the hardest, is it really songs like this that just say like, I'm so depressed? Or is it the songs that have deeper, more meaningful lyrics that actually speak to you in a complex way? So if you are at the point where you can say like, yeah, all right, these are kind of cliche adolescent lyrics, my question to you then is, when do we actually expect our artists to move past stuff like this? When do we tell like Ollie Sykes, yeah, you're too old to sing this shit? Like, you're too old. And that doesn't mean, I'm not saying, oh, you're telling him to grow up and that's against the metal spirit. You know, metal's about fighting and rebellion and blah, blah, blah. No. You can do all that. That's great. I'm all about it. When do you stop writing songs like a 15-year-old? Like, when should you just do that your whole life? No. So in general, like to me, when we look at songs and music these days, right? Like everyone does this where they look at the songs and they're like, oh, music sucks these days. What's going on? And we question it. It's like, why aren't these songs timeless? And why don't they stick with us the way that they used to? You know, I just don't care about the music these days. And I don't want to listen to new music and blah, 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 right? Like we ask ourselves these questions, but then when it comes to actually like analyzing it and saying like, well, what really is the problem? Turns out most people are perfectly fine settling for crap like this. They're perfectly, I like the song. I like these lyrics. They speak to me because I'm depressed. Is that it? Is that all that matters to you? Like, oh, it just speaks to me. So it doesn't matter what they actually say, or if the lyricism is of a higher quality or maturity. It doesn't matter if the words they use and the lines they use have been done thousands and thousands of times in hundreds of other metal songs. I like it. Okay. So that's where I say, at some point, if you're the type of person who is just settling for this, you've got to look at yourself and say like, look, if you are unhappy with the state of music and the state of the music industry, like ask yourself, is the music that you're consuming or the artists that you're supporting actually improving and growing? And are they therefore worth your time and investment? Because if not, maybe that's time for you mentally to explore new avenues of music, because there's so much better music than this, right? There's so many better songs and better artists. And again, this isn't like a bad song, but stuff like this chorus, it just turns me off immediately. It's like, yeah, you are writing like a 15-year-old. I have nothing more to say to you. Like I have no interest in this song at this point, because to me the quality is so low. And so I've mentioned my complaints with this song, but this is like number one. Grow up. You can be a metalhead and embody that energy and that spirit and still be a mature adult human who like has a quality threshold. And the funny thing is to me, I think the metal community has some of the highest quality thresholds of all. I mean, we'll sit and debate Megadeth versus Metallica for 40 fucking years, and we will probably still debate it long after I'm dead and you listening are dead. It's going to be debated forever because that's how passionate we are about it. But why then do we like accept, oh yeah, okay, this is what I'm going to check out, and this is like this, yeah, this new Bring Me the Horizon song is really the shit, man. It's like, no, like, come on. So yeah, anyway, to round this out, like to give it maybe like a nice bow on top, as humans, as people, we are actually supposed to, over time and as we get older, expand and improve our intellect and wisdom. If you're not doing that, you're actually regressing, because time moves forward without you. We bring in new information as we get older, and we improve on the foundations of our mentality and philosophy, like the foundational beliefs that we had in our youth. We build on them, and so that structure, like mental philosophical structure that we create for ourselves, which is essentially our worldview, it grows as we get new experiences and knowledge, and that's how it becomes wisdom. That's how we become wise adults and individuals. Listening to things like this, it's regressive, it's deconstructive, it holds you back. And so it's not just like, oh, it keeps you in the same place, it hinders the growth. So yeah, I understand it's really nice to listen to the stuff that you like and it makes you comfortable and you know these lyrics and you're familiar with them, and it's safe and it speaks to you emotionally, right? But at some point, like, well, at some point you don't have to do that. You can stay rooted in what you are comfortable with and what you know, but it doesn't have the intellectualism that actually boosts you over time. So yeah, it's not good for you. It's not good for you, and it's not good for the music industry either. It's not good for metal that we accept lyrics like this, and especially like this song, which I want to be clear, this isn't actually a bad song. There's a lot of really good elements, and there was a lot of work poured into it, but this chorus, raise your standards. Raise your standards. That's my rant. I hope I didn't piss everybody off, but like, it's how I feel. I'm tired of it. That's why I started this podcast. Yeah, every single line's a cliche. Every line in this chorus is a cliche. There's nothing good here. So let's keep going. Verse 2. Actually, we have a little short post-chorus bridge, which is pretty cool. Yeah, what the hell is wrong with me? Yeah, we've heard that. We've heard it. We've heard it 10,000 times. So yeah, we get this little post-chorus bridge, which is fun. Keeps things, brings the energy back down after the big explosive chorus, but keeps things kind of fun and interesting as well. Like it keeps it fast-paced, and brings us into the second verse. So let's just play verse 2, because there are some pretty big changes from verse 1.
Imaginary enemies, suicidal tendencies, serotonin is proper on its off. I used to go to therapy, but the doctor tried to section me. The next time that I open up to someone will be my autopsy, because
All right, so I actually do really like those drums there. There's a lot of good stuff in this song, seriously. But Okay, so the first half of the verse is essentially the same musically. There's just that droning sound, but there are some extra, like, I would describe them as like poppy synths in the left and right ears, just to add a little more depth to it. Let me play that because I don't think it's the type of thing that you would notice on your first listen.
Imaginary enemies, suicidal tendencies.
They could even be guitars. Again, it's hard to tell. Some of the stuff is so buried in the mix that I can't tell if it's guitars or not, but it sounds like listen for it here. It's very subtle.
Suicidal tendencies. Serotonin's proper on its arse.
Yeah, so it's definitely there, but it's just very buried in the mix, and I think it's just, again, a little layer that they added to enhance the verse. Halfway through the, actually, real quick, I forgot to mention this on the first verse, but they do these little like ohs, which they're fine. It's cute. Yeah, I don't mind them. They're fun. But halfway through, it sounds like a guitar comes in. I'm almost certain it's a guitar, but it comes in with these long notes that give it it adds a little bit of differentiation from the first verse and gives it kind of a little more atmosphere. Here, check it out. It's right here.
I used to go to therapy, but the doctor tried to section me. The next time that I open up to someone will be my autopsy.
Yeah, so like, I actually really like this note choice. They sound both fun and sad at the same time. Like there's almost like a little, almost like nostalgia to it, right? Those long notes when they come in. Listen to it.
To section. I used to go to therapy, but the doctor tried to section me. The next time that I open
Yeah, there's like this nostalgic element to it that I actually think is really cool. So good note choices on them. I don't know what they are theoretically. I didn't look them up, but yeah, some pretty cool stuff. And it very well could be a synth. And, honestly, the more I listen to it, I think it's actually just both. I think it's a synth and a guitar. Regardless, it sounds cool. It's a cool tone as well, like that distorted, it's not like metal distortion, but it is just enough distortion to give it like this gritty feel. So yeah, it's cool. The vocals, I think, here, hold on.
section me. The next time that I open up to someone will be my autopsy.
Yeah, so the vocals to me on this verse sound maybe just a little more filtered. Like I might be just hearing it.
But the doctor tried to section me.
So like you hear that, it just sounds a little filtered compared to.
My dog just died, my friends hate me. I saw myself on
Yeah, that's the first verse. Hear how clear that is, and then compare it to this.
open up to someone will be my tried to section me. The next time
You see what I mean? So there's like a little more of a filter on there, a little more distortion to it. So yeah, it's fine. I think that's all of the musical elements. The melody's the same vocally. Oh, excuse me. But yeah, and there's like these little harmonies in the vocals coming through that I think are cool. Again, we're just layering things on. These verses are very like, they're treating these verses like just layer ADHD, just really get the zaniness of the brain going. Not a bad thing. Really good. Fits the song. So I like that. The lyrics in verse 2, I don't think they're bad. Maybe, but they are a little lackluster compared to verse 1, right? Which I think is kind of a shame. So like imaginary enemies, suicidal tendencies, I think that's a little on the nose. And to me, it's kind of just, it's a little self-loathing. It's fine. Those lyrics don't really do much for me. It's just kind of there. Serotonin's proper on its arse. I think it's a clever way of describing depression, right? So serotonin is like, it's like the happiness drug, right? And if you don't have enough of it, or it's the happiness chemical in your brain, if you don't have enough of it, then you are depressed, right? So it's like you get a serotonin deficiency. I think like I said, it's a clever way of describing depression, but kind of similar to like the red crescents in the first pre-chorus. To me, it's just more of a dressed up way of saying the same thing. So it's like, yeah, like it's we're just gonna say the same thing, just like make it fancier, right? But I do like the imagery of like serotonin's on its arse. So it's similar to like the big fat slug of ketamine in the first verse, where it's like there is imagery that is created from the words that you use, whether you intend it to or not. So you can find opportunities to use words in your sentences, in your lyrics, that create imagery on their own, right? So I mentioned Robert Frost, or not Robert Frost, but like a poem in the woods, right? You would talk about like the crackling wind or something, and it's like that word crackling has, it's from the leaves. It describes the leaves. I know that's not the same. That's actually not my point, because that's specifically imagery related lyrics or imagery words. But you can say something and then the words in and of themselves give it imagery, right? Like big fat slug of ketamine also gives you the image of a slug, which is kind of the character in this story, right? He's sitting on the couch, drugged up, watching anime. So then the next few lyrics are, I used to go to therapy, but the doctor tried to section me. And then he says, the next time I open up to someone will be my autopsy. So here's the thing. This might be personal preference, but that's fine. I'm going to tell you my personal preference. I think that modern therapeutic language in songs is awful. I think it's so bland. I think it's always used in self-loathing songs like this. So no one ever talks about therapy in a song in a positive way. Like they don't talk about how therapy helped them resolve the conflict, or that they're happy because of therapy, or like, thank God I went to therapy, it makes me feel so much better. Like you don't use therapy in a happy song. It's always in songs like this, which are like depressed, lost, lonely, self-loathing songs. And to me, because I actually support like going and talking to a therapist or a counselor if you need it. Like I'm totally for that, right? But like when it's used like this, it automatically calls into question the effectiveness of the therapy, right? Because the people who seem to know the most about it are always so miserable, right? And who talk about it the most are always so miserable. The common counter that I see to this is like, oh, they know so much about therapy because they're so sad and miserable that they need it. But that's the thing too, is like legitimate psychologists are the first to tell you that therapy, like any form of medicine, has consequences if applied too much. Like if you are spending every week of the year talking about all of the problems in your life, it actually emphasizes the problems more. So when you go to therapy, you're actually supposed to go for a purpose and for a set period of time. Like I want to have 6 sessions over a 12-week period in order to resolve this issue that I realized I had. Like I have a binge eating disorder, and I need to see a therapist to work through why I have that and to resolve the issue. That's the point. So to me, I think it's typically people who don't do that, who don't use therapy sparingly and for its intended purpose of like a temporary, to resolve a specific issue. They're the ones that make their depression and misery worse by turning it into like a, part of their life. So, and I think that is emphasized by songs like this, where the stuff, it's always the songs that are the most self-loathing, the most depressing, the most miserable, where they talk about the serotonin and their therapy and their dopamine levels and depression and all of that. And I think it does a disservice to counseling and therapy, and it comes off as a little cliche and honestly just kind of whiny. And I know that's not what like you're supposed to say about it, but like it's how I view it. You at some point it's like, oh my God, here we go, another artist talking about their therapy. Like solve the problem. That's the whole point of the therapy, is that you're not always depressed. So if you're constantly depressed and you go to therapy every other week and you've done therapy for years, the therapy is not working. You need to change something that you're doing, because at some point you're not supposed to be depressed anymore. I know that he's oversimplifying it. I don't care. That's the way you're supposed to do it. Like, so that's my thoughts. getting real controversial on this episode, but it's how I feel about it. Like, and here's the thing, whether you agree with me or not, you can't deny that at this point in 2025, it's become a cliche. Talking about therapy in a song has become a cliche. So that's how I feel about these lyrics. So the last line is, the next time I open up to someone will be my autopsy. I don't think this is clever at all. To me, it's just more and more self-loathing, and especially after that chorus, at this point in the song, it's getting old. Now, with that said, that's very unfortunate because the song doesn't really have anything new to say after this. The bridge lyrics, just spoiler alert, the lyrics in the bridge are just about having a mental breakdown. The second and third chorus just repeats. There's no new lyrics. The pre-chorus, same. There's like one word that changes or something, but like it's the same. So there is no more new information to be presented in this song after this. I think that is a huge letdown, but I'm going to talk about it in more detail later when we get to the bridge. So I just want to note that this is the end of new information, and it just ends with self-loathing. So yeah, we get into pre-chorus 2, which actually does have some pretty significant musical changes. Okay, so this second pre-chorus is like way more different than the first. It is distinctly more intense. There are normal drums. There's guitars playing in the background, like a full band. Ollie is singing by himself, and he's singing very, very intensely. And it evolves into screaming on the second half, and it's very strong screaming. That's very intense. I would still consider that singing. It's not quite screaming yet, but then yeah, he gets that super screamy thing there. Now with that said, there is like this weird filter on his voice in this section. I can't tell if it's just his voice. Well, there's something also weird going on with the mix too. It sounds like everything is like panned towards the center of the audio spectrum, and it's just kind of strange. It gives it this very like closed sound, like especially coming out of the verse, which is very full and it's like all over the place, to like closed, like everything's very closed. I don't know what to think of it. It just kind of struck me a little bit whenever I heard it. I think it does sound a little, and with that filter on his voice too, I actually think he sounds just a little neutered at first. And it's not him, like he's doing a great job with the vocal performance, but the way it just sounds a little weak to me. But it does get a lot better when he starts screaming. But also his screams are doubled, so maybe that doubling is like just enhancing it. I'm not sure. But yeah, like here, listen to what I mean. I'm purely talking about the mix, y'all, just to be clear. Like I'm not talking about like his performance. Mix wise, it just sounds a little weak, but again, it's not bad. It sounds better, and again, it sounds better with the screams. Yeah, like that's all cool. But do you hear how like, let me play the transition from the verse to the pre-chorus, because you can hear how the verse is very wide and all over the place, and then it just kind of all focuses down the middle during the pre-chorus. And now listen to how much it opens up when the chorus comes in. I don't know. It may just be me. It may just be something that I'm hearing, but I swear it just sounds a little like tighter and like a little more, it's not bad, because it actually kind of can be like that pent up feeling, that pent up rage. So it's not even like a bad thing, and it fits with the theme of the section and all that, but like, or the theme of the song, but it's just something that I wanted to point out. The drums here are super cool in this pre-chorus as well. Let's take a listen to those, because there's like they're playing this really cool beat. It's like what was the beat? I lost it. I'm not a drummer, I'm a guitarist. Yeah, so boom ba doom ba doom ba doom ba doom ba doom ba. A little tom fill there. Awesome drum fill there as well. So yeah, a lot of cool stuff. I think that this pre-chorus overall, last thing, lyrically, it's the same. The only difference is that he says, I can't fucking stand it instead of I can't understand it. So I can't stand it. It's like, okay. It doesn't really add too much. I mean, it's like, I don't know. Maybe people will disagree with me, but I just think it's kind of a meaningless lyric change. It's yes, and to be clear, yes, I understand that it's an evolution from the first pre-chorus. He says, I can't understand it. Now he understands it and he can't stand it. It's like, okay. Will the real depressed man please stand up? Anyway, I just want to say the pre-chorus being heavy here, I think is actually really good. It keeps the energy super high because, we have the verse. The verse has these distorted guitars that come in. We have a super heavy pre-chorus. Then we have a heavy chorus. And I think keeping that energy really high is good because then at the end of the second chorus, we drop out, like everything drops out. And I think that is made more impactful by the fact that we've had the energy so high for so long for like multiple sections. So yeah, I think that that's one of the reasons they would have done it. And maybe just to keep the pacing of the song, going. The second verse is typically where you need to like be a little careful about what you're doing, because that's where people will fall off, because at that point you're repeating things that they've already heard, and if it's not compelling enough to keep listening to it, they're not going to keep listening to it, or they're not going to be interested, right? So yeah, that's pretty much everything. Oh, there was like a really cool little drum, it's like synth drums, but there's a little drum transition into the pre-chorus that I forgot to talk about. Yeah, I think that's super cool. It's cool stuff. Okay. Chorus 2. There's no real change. We're kind of just gonna skip it. Yeah, I think I said enough about the chorus already. If anyone's still watching after that, props to you. Like, I went kind of in on those lyrics in the chorus. Yeah, the only difference here is the last line where he adds own worst enemy, and then screams, I'm so terribly lost. Here, let's play it. And he does that just to extend out. Well, I don't think it extends, actually. I think he just does it. I don't think that the length of the chorus is different. I think that he just keeps singing up to the very end of it, so that way it creates more intensity and builds up before everything cuts out into the first bridge. So it's more of like a musical rhythmic vocal decision as opposed to actually wanting to add lyrics that create more substance, because the lyric he adds is own worst enemy, which is again a huge cliche. All right, so yeah, again, da na 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 na. Yeah, he's just singing more words to build up the intensity up to that outro. So then when we drop down, it's more impactful. Okay, so let's get into the soft bridge. Actually, I don't have too much to say here. But it's cool. Here, I'll just let that soft bridge play. Okay, we're not going to talk about that yet. So soft bridge. So yeah, everything cuts out. There's the droning synth back again. Not quite as intense. Is that the same droning bridge from the verse? It's very similar. It might be the same instrument, like MIDI instrument, but different notes, like a lower note. So it's a little less aggressive. Anyway, so yeah, there's a droning synth. Then there's like this rhythmic synth sound as well. So then you get this, and then there's this distorted vocal that comes in as well. It sounds like it's kind of pitch shifted, like if I keep this up, I think I'm gonna break down. And they kind of coalesce with each other, which I think is cool. It gives it almost makes it sound like the synth is like intertwining or like evolving into the distorted vocal, when in reality I think the synth is just doing its own thing, and then the vocal comes in and follows the rhythm of it. But again, they interplay really well to give it like that cyberpunky, like, you know, distorted vocal sound. Right. And so then we're just paying attention to the vocals right now, but it keeps building, right, and it keeps distorting, and then you get this. So yeah, we get this girl singing that. I think I'm gonna break down. Little Japanese girl, kawaii. Doesn't have to be Japanese. It's just whatever. K-poppy sound. It's the girl on the album cover. That's who it is. That's her. Anyway, so yeah, the synths also swell, bringing us into the heavy bridge. Everything cuts out, and you get that, which again, like this idea, we're building up, cutting out, building up, cutting out in order to have those intense moments. Yeah, the lyrics are fun, and I do think that they fit because there is well, it fits the theme of the song, right? If I don't change what I'm doing, I'm going to have a breakdown. But then also there is a literal breakdown coming. It's an actual breakdown. So that is fun. Again, it's a fun song, so that's cool. But the lyrics thematically don't really add anything new. This is kind of implied by the nature of the song. You know, of course, this is the natural conclusion. It's like, yeah, I'm depressed and I'm gonna break down. I'm gonna have a breakdown because of how lost I am. It's like, it does not. That doesn't really do anything for us thematically. It doesn't offer any sort of resolution. You know, we're going to talk about it in a moment. So let's just get into this heavy breakdown, and then I'll discuss that in more detail. So let's listen to it. Sorry, I started it like right at it, and I need to start it a little bit before.
Think I'm gonna break down.
So there we go. That's the climax right there. Cool. It's pretty cool. It's a solid breakdown, right? All right, this is where I lose everybody. Everyone's gonna hate me after this. I am a little notorious amongst some of my friends. I don't like breakdowns. I don't like them. At least not in the like Asking Alexandria, Bring Me the Horizon sense. I'm not a big fan. And I just want to explain. Now, with that said, this is a little bit of a personal preference, but I have background, and I'm going to explain why I'm not the biggest fan of breakdowns in general. With that said, I do think this is a good breakdown. But yeah, let me just give my perspective on breakdowns real quick. To me, breakdowns are very similar to EDM drops. They are cool, but typically only in the most superficial way. They are almost always hollow from a songwriting perspective. And let me explain that, because I know everyone's going, what the fuck? When we look at songwriting, right? Like when we look at the art of writing a song, and really not just songwriting, but like art and stories in general, like books and movies and all of that, right? There is an ebb and flow between moments of action and moments of inaction. Intensity, calmness, right? The calmness builds into moments of action, which then come back down into moments of calm again. This is kind of like a fundamental thing when it comes to the ebb and flow of a story. a good artist knows how to play with this buildup and release of tension. They will play with the format. They will add, they'll throw a little bit of tension into a moment of calm when you wouldn't expect it, or throw a moment of calm into a moment of tension. You think about like one scene that comes to mind is like Kill Bill, right? At the end of Kill Bill, she's like slaughtering everybody. It's crazy and intense. And then like after how intense it is, she's got to fight the final girl with the samurai out in the back of the dojo, and there's snow everywhere. And it's actually really calm. It's very like, nothing's happening, but it's like the climax. It's the moment of the most intensity, but there's this moment of calm right before it, right? It's very good. It's very well placed, right? So what I'm saying is like, they know, like a good artist, a good filmmaker, a good story writer or songwriter knows how to build up and release the tension in ways that add extra emotional depth to, you can add emotional depth to an action scene, or add an element of tension or a reminder of the conflict in a scene of calm, right? Another good one that just came to mind that I really like is like in Lord of the Rings, when Frodo is speaking in Fellowship, when Frodo is speaking to Galadriel at the, they're in this serene grotto in the Elven city, and I think he suggests that she take the ring. And this is a very calm moment, right? I think this happens very quickly after Gandalf dies. So we've just had a moment of extreme action with the demon Balrog and Gandalf dying and Moria, and all of that is a very intense moment. And now we have what is supposed to be this serene moment of calm, kind of bringing the intensity down so we can process that moment, right? And then he suggests to her maybe she should take the ring, and Galadriel just out of nowhere transforms into this horrible demonic monster, right? And just like yells at him and freaks out in Elvish, right? And it's just crazy. And then like instantly she's like right back to normal. And I remember watching that scene for the first time when I was a kid and just being like, what the hell? What the fuck? Because you're just not expecting it, right? It's very impactful, and it leaves a mark because you're expecting a moment of calm, but it's not random. It's a very important scene actually to sort of remind you of how severe the stakes are with the ring. And it kind of just, it fits well because Gandalf reacted a similar way when Frodo asked him to take the ring. It's like Gandalf's like, no, I can't take it. Like me with the ring would be the end of Middle Earth, right? So yeah. In situations like that, it's not random. It's not this meaningless scene that's just done to shock the viewer. It has a purpose to it. And there's a lot of context that goes into creating a scene like that. So this ebb and flow and this intensity and up and down, this applies to music as well. In most songs, we'll get like a soft intro followed by a heavy intro where things are intense, and then a soft verse, which then builds up into a pre-chorus, which then builds up into a heavy chorus, and then comes back down and repeats. That's essentially what's happening in this song, right? So you have this ebb and flow of, intensity and unintensity. Now, clever artists will play with that. Like if you look at Metallica's The Unforgiven, that song has very heavy verses and then very calm soft choruses, which kind of inverts what you would normally expect from a song, which is soft verse, heavy chorus, right? So yeah, there's purpose to all of that, and it works for the flow of a song. Now, even in this moment, right? Even in this bridge, there was this, like the bridge before this, like the calm bridge that came before this breakdown, right? It was very purposefully placed there in order to bring the energy down, just so that it can make the heavy bridge, the breakdown, I shouldn't call it the heavy bridge, the breakdown, more impactful when it happens. Like that it's super heavy when it comes in because of how soft everything got before it. They could have just as easily not had that clean bridge and just gone straight from the end of the chorus into the heavy bridge. I mean, here we can almost simulate the way that would sound right here. Let's see if I can make it work.
I'm
So like I know that's a poor simulation, but you see what I mean. Like they didn't have to have that clean bridge there, but they put it there very purposefully to control the intensity of the section, to bring things down so that they come up. So this ebb and flow of intensity and calmness is like central to the flow of art and of stories and of songs. In my opinion, breakdowns and EDM drops are an abuse of this ebb and flow. I think that they're both an abuse of it, but also the pinnacle of it, right? So they are the pinnacle of tension and release, because that is the only purpose for them existing. They only exist: build up, drop, release. Build the tension up, drop, release. It's an artificial high to me. Like there's nothing to really, you can have it without any sort of emotional or intellectual investment in what's happening in the song. I mean, most EDM songs are about nothing. It's simply just, this sounds cool and I like it. And I hear people say this thing now, like it tickles my brain. It's like, so what are you, like a child STEM TV? Like you watch STEM TV? Like what is this, right? And I mean, that's essentially what breakdowns end up being too. It's like STEM television for adults. I want to feel the intensity, right? But then you don't want to put in the work to wait for the climax and get the most rewarding. You don't want to put in the work and the time invested to actually have a proper emotional climax in a song, because those take time, right? It's just easier to have a breakdown because that's heavy and it sounds cool and I like it. And so it's like, you know, again, I mentioned The Stage by Avenged Sevenfold. It's an 8-minute song, but there's a whole lot of build up to that climax in that song. And when it hits, it's like, oh my God, this is awesome. Like, this is crazy what I'm listening to right now. When you get to the, you know, the final big moment of that song, and it has a lot of impact too. The lyrics are super, super deep. And, you know, he's saying, can't you wake up? And it's like, after all the craziness, we get there and it just works really, really well. So yeah, to me, breakdowns, EDM drops, things like this, it's an artificial high. It's just using the power of noise and mixing to just build, you know, things are calm and they build up and then they explode in just the craziest, most random way. And that's why a lot of them honestly end up being like a race to the bottom, right? Which here, let me explain it like this, right? That, because I don't think that you can have, I don't think that there can't be good breakdowns that fit the theme of a song. In fact, I think this song is a good example of that. This is one of the better breakdowns I've heard, because it actually fits with the idea of like having a breakdown because you're so lost and confused in the world that you live in, right? But that's not the case for most breakdowns. Most of them are written as a kind of a safe way to keep a listener engaged. It's like, oh, we've hit the bridge of our song. What do? Well, we write a breakdown. It's like, is that all you know how to write? Is that the only type of bridge you know how to do? Because there's infinite number of bridges and compositions that you can have in a song. There's so many ways to do it. You know, there are like Guns N' Roses. Go listen to Guns N' Roses. They don't have a single breakdown in their song, and yet they have 8-9 minute songs with tons of bridges and interludes and all of this stuff. It's like, what do they do? How did they do that? How do they keep the listener engaged without breakdowns? Well, they have to be a little more creative. But what happens with these breakdowns, right, is that they end up being kind of a race to the bottom. They're like, because what happens is, right, is that you have a simple breakdown. And that, like, you look back to like, I you know, when I think about like the best breakdown ever, to me, call me a fucking boomer if you want, but it's oh my God, Pantera, Domination. It's Domination by Pantera. And it's very simple. Jun, 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 right? But it embodies the energy of a breakdown, right? But it's very simple. So then you have artists after that that say, oh, I love Domination, so now I want to copy that. So then they do jun, 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 and they slowly start to copy that and do things. And then you get more complicated ones. You go dun, 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 and then you get faster, like bow, 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 and slowly over time, it's like photocopying an image and then photocopying it like 1,000 times, right? And you end up with these breakdowns that are just so random and ridiculous, and like you've almost lost the spirit of what a breakdown was supposed to be, and like the real life the real life implications of a breakdown, because we've just gotten into this mode of like random breakdown. I mean, some of the breakdowns I've heard are essentially just EDM drops. They're just ridiculous sounding, and they don't even, but they mean nothing. There's no depth behind it. There's no theme to them. So yeah, like you end up with a bunch of artists competing to make the wackiest, most random, most like off-putting breakdown in order to accommodate, you know, people who like the fans of those breakdowns. And then to me, that's almost like the exact opposite of the mentality of the artists who try to make timeless works of art, right? Because think about it, right? Like if you want to make a timeless work of art, is your goal going to be to make the most intricate, complex, like wacky thing? Or is it going to be, what is the theme of the work? What is the purpose of this, of every single note, right? Like, it's kind of like comparing ChatGPT crazy visualizations and all this shit, right, to like, you know, a Van Gogh or you know, what's that guy's name? I can't. It's late. Sorry, I'm losing my brain. But like you famous Renaissance paintings, where like every aspect of the painting, hell, even my thumbnail, from the Sistine Chapel. Oh my God, who painted? I know his name. Michelangelo. Is it Michelangelo? Please tell me it's Michelangelo. Yes. Okay, got it. I got it before I looked it up. Yeah, so like you look at Michelangelo, right? Like look at my thumbnail where you have Adam and God. I think it's called The Creation of Adam, and you know the implication is that if Adam is the human, and if he were to just raise his finger a little bit, he could touch God. And the implication of that is if we as humans actually put a little bit more effort into the things that we do and tried and weren't so lazy, we could actually become godlike, and we could touch God and we could experience that, right? That's one of the reasons why I chose it for the thumbnail, because I put a lot of work into these breakdowns, and I feel like if you know people listening to them can be inspired by them and put a little bit more effort into the music that they make, or be a little more selective about the music they listen to and what they consider to be good, I think that we would be better off. We would have less tolerance for bad stuff. That's a little bit of a tangent, but anyway, the whole point is that, you know, when you're talking about a timeless work, there's purpose to every move. And when you're talking about breakdowns, especially newer breakdowns, it's just wackiness and randomness for the sake of wackiness and randomness. So yeah, I don't really like them. I think they all have very similar energies. They certainly all, you know, not all, but typically serve the same purpose in the song, which unfortunately is typically irrelevant to the themes of the song. So, or the theme of the song is something generic, like I'm angry or I'm on the verge of breaking down. And it's like, again, not a unique theme, very common theme, you know, just how like angry I am and I have to express it with a breakdown. It's like, yep, you and 10,000 other people, man. So yeah, and honestly, I think I think they typically are less interesting than almost any other type of climax, because, you know, you listen to most climaxes, they can't rely on breakdowns like from like a country artist, so they have to write lyrics, and there has to be some like lyrical theme that they tie things back to. Now that can be bad too, but at least it's not a cop out, which I think most breakdowns tend to be. Probably lost everybody with that rant. Nobody likes me anymore. But again, like we've been listening to breakdowns for decades and decades and decades, and they just get more random and more crazy. So like kind of the same thing with the lyrics of this song. It's like, is this it? Is this all metal is? Is metal just breakdowns? Is that like, is that all we can do? And if you're an artist that writes breakdowns, listen to all of your songs, listen to all the breakdowns that you've written, and then ask yourself, it's like, is this the only thing I can do? Because again, you can't, like, you can have good breakdowns and they could be purposeful, but it's when you start using them as a cop out, and when they don't relate to the theme, and when they don't have a timeless element to them, that they lose their quality, and it just doesn't really have an impact anymore, or they lose their impact, right? But unfortunately, I think I'm very much in the minority on this one. So there we are. Make of that what you will. There's my rant on breakdowns. With all that said, this is a pretty good breakdown. Okay. Oh my God, I've got another rant. I've got one more. Y'all ready? So now that we've kind of reached the end of the song for the most part, I mean, here, let's play this little chorus here. Well, actually, you know what I should do? I should actually break down the elements of the breakdown. I think that would be good. Let's go through them real quick. So right there off the bat, the reason why that sounds so impactful is because they cut out any ambient noise in between the so it's a dead stop. So most like if you are actually playing the guitar and you go like, you can't fully stop the guitar from making noise for that little split second. There's going to be noise, like just the sound of your fingers on the strings, or just the guitar moving, or all of that. That's what we would consider ambient noise. And so it sounds more like so that it rolls over. But what they did was they cut all of that out in the production to make it sound very like in your face, like dun, dun. And what that does actually is the ambient noise is what gives the song its setting and puts you in an environment. When you make it that abrupt, what it actually subconsciously does to you is makes it sound like it's right in your ears. It's right there, because that's where like imagine. So for example, if you heard a noise in the back of the room, you're going to hear the noise, but then it's also going to be like reverb of the room reflecting into your ears, and it's going to give you this like this sense of distance and space. But if you hear that same noise right in your ear, you're not going to hear the ambient noise. You're going to hear the sound right there. And so by cutting out the ambient noise in between that, they nail that. Like they make it sound right up in your ear. And that's basically what's happening with all of these little stops and starts and stuff like that. Like the little vocal, whatever it is. It's there to boost. Well, it's doing the same thing. You know, that's why it sounds so like random and in your face, and people again use that terminology like tickle their brain or whatever. It's because it makes it sound like it's right there in your ear, because they're cutting any ambient noise out. Same with drums. Like drums are a big one, where like you play a cymbal, it's gonna ring. It's very hard to play the cymbal and then stop it. Even if you do it like perfectly, it's gonna sound like but if you go like that, it sounds like it's right there, you know, as opposed to like, you know, when you close it or stop it with your hand. So that's what they're doing. And so it's production effects. It's production magic. Yeah. And then, yeah, they go into like super fast charts. So they're going between these little, they're not triplets. They're like gallops, you know, 3/16 notes, you know, and they go into like a super fast notes there, and they add a whole bunch of synth and production over that, which then explodes into a long note, you know. And so you see there that they're doing the same breakdown, but now the drums are playing kind of a continuous drum beat, and they're not stopping the ambient noise in the guitar. So the guitars still sound really tight, but you can actually hear that they're not just like they actually sound. So you've gone from it being right in your head to like now there's openness and space, right? Now there's a lot of other elements that are making this sound spacious too. So you have the in the background, there's this synth that's like let's hear it. I can't quite get it. Sorry. And then obviously you've got that big whoa, which I don't know. That's like a millennial thing, right? Like the big whoop chorus. That's a real thing. The millennial whoop. Google search that. It's like a it's literally like a note pattern that is associated with millennials. Whoa, like it's real. Yeah, so I don't know, I'm not like, I'm fine with it. I don't know, I don't really have any feelings on it. To me, again, I kind of went on this whole breakdown rant. I'm not like the biggest fan of breakdowns anyway, and this is just, it's fine. It's a cool climax. The guitars are cool. I don't think that they're like particularly amazing. I think that the production makes them sound more intricate than they are. It's, you know, again, I'm a guitarist, so I'm a pretty solid guitarist too, and it's like dun 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 dun. It's like, yeah, okay, cool. Which actually, that kind of brings me to another topic. I think that's pretty much everything to talk about. That everything's just going full blast on this breakdown here. Yeah, we again build the intensity up all the way and then drop everything down again. So let's just discuss this real quick, because I want to talk about another problem I got with metal, which is the metal formula, like the modern metal formula. It's really become kind of ubiquitous, what I'm about to say, which is like you have open string chugs with maybe a few like random notes, put the drums on like a consistent pattern, like just have them playing like a ride or a crash or something, and then have the snare on, you know, the 2 and the 4, or maybe the 3, something like that, and then just make the kick follow the rhythm guitar part perfectly. That's the formula now. And it's kind of crazy to me, like everyone is doing this. It's so like, to me it's like the metal version of trap beats in rap, where like every rap beat now is like, you know, every, like all the trap beats kind of just sound the same, but we're just like fine with that. And it's again, I use that word ubiquitous. It's just everywhere in modern metal. This just like with the kicks following along with the guitars exactly. And it's like, how did we like? It's funny because I hear it so much now that it's almost hard to remember like how did drums and guitars interact before, like before this. And that's what's funny is like there's so many, like here's the thing. Heavy music is super distinct because of how complex the instrumentation can be. Almost no other genre allows for this level of complexity, right? So like you can have insane guitar parts, insane rhythm guitar parts in the verse, or leads during the verse, or crazy drum parts that do these ridiculous things. So then to me, it's like, why do we keep doing this exact same thing? And it's not that we just like accept it, like it's not just that we accept this as the norm. It's that to even like change it or like do something that where the drums and rhythm guitars don't match up, it almost seems like foreign to like modern metalheads. Like, do y'all know that like the drums interacted? Like, do y'all understand how drums and here, actually, hold on, I'm gonna pull this up. I because there's examples that you can look at of like how, because this is a very new thing, right? Like it's always been a thing that like the kick drum follows along with the rhythm guitar, but never exactly like, because that's what's happening, right? If you just, that's one of the things that makes this so impactful, because it's totally here. Like this is totally following the metal formula where like the cymbal is consistent, the snare drum is consistent, and then you just have the kick drum following along with the guitars, right? You know, now we get into a drum fill that we're at the end of the section, but it's just kind of like, really? Like, that's the best we got? So here, hold on. Let me show y'all something. This is a good example. We look at like, God Hates Us, right? So we're talking like, how do you make drums and guitars interact in different ways? Well, let's pull up a good one. Where is it? I think it's like right here. So very open, letting the rhythm guitars actually take up a lot of that space. A lot of space here. Listen to that kick. Super epic kick. Listen to that kick. It's not following the guitars at all. It's like doing its own thing. But because of that, this section has a whole lot of like space and complexity happening, and it sounds really crazy. Listen to that one more time, the way that kick comes in. It's like you can actually just completely separate the kick from the rhythm guitar. They don't actually need to follow each other. But that's kind of my point, is like we have totally become addicted in metal to this. Like yeah, of course, that's just what the kick drum does, is it just follows it. And it's like, no, it doesn't have to do that. Like, since when does it need to do that? Here, hold on. Like, this is not, and I'm not being crazy here. Like, it actually never did that. Like, check it out. Like, follow the kick here, the kick drum. The kick is very, like, in modern metal, that kick would have gone dum 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 dum. You know, dun, 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 dun. It's like, no, you don't need to do that. And in fact, by minimizing the kick, because the kick is super aggressive, it's like the kick and the snare are like the most aggressive drums, right? And so it has a lot of impact, but you actually give your song so much more. If you're talking like space, you give a song so much more space when you don't follow the guitars with the drums, because you actually let the guitars kind of carry a section and the drums just open it up, right? Like, so it's kind of crazy. But then again, I mentioned, like, you know, the idea of developing what metal sounds like, and like we're just doing this thing now, which just feels like a total like cop out, you know, songwriting or music wise, kind of similar to trap beats, or it's like a byproduct. To me, it's a byproduct of the like computerization of rock and metal music, right? Like, we have computers and we can program in our drums, so of course the drums are just going to follow the guitars. That's what we do. And it's like we lose the idea of the drummer having their own, you know, having control over the rhythm of the section. And we also write these inhuman drum parts too that don't even like sound natural. But anyway, so the thing I want to mention was, like, one of the heaviest songs that I've heard recently would be Chimera by Polyphia. To me, those verses are gnarly as hell. Here, hold on, let me pull what I've got, since we're going through a few different songs right now. And like, again, what I'm doing here is bringing up a whole lot of different examples of like what metal can sound like, right? So here, take a listen to this. Listen to this. It's like, to me, that's heavy as hell. That's awesome. Like that's like gnarly as hell. It's super metal. But like, I think there's a lot of people who would completely disagree with me, like angrily disagree with me, saying that it's not actually heavy or even metal or anything. And I'm like, why do you say that? Like, how can you say that that's not heavy? Like, that's heavy as shit. But it just doesn't follow what we conventionally think of as being heavy or even metal, right? But it has all the elements. It's an 8-string electric distorted guitar. The section is unbelievably difficult to play, and it has all of the darkness and intensity that we would expect from heavy music, but it's just being presented in a way that's a little bit different and doesn't follow this formula, right? Of like, oh yeah, of course, everything just has to go full bore all the time. And it's like, that's not really real. That's not true. It never has been in metal. But God, every song I hear nowadays, I've got a second monitor that I've got Spotify pulled up on. That's why I keep doing this. Yeah. So we get back to this. Is this it? Is this all metal can be? It's like, I don't know. It's kind of strange to me. So yeah, when I hear breakdowns like that, to me, which it's just essentially regular metal. It's very cliche. It's very normal. It's not really doing anything different with the formula. But, and I mentioned this earlier in the song, there is a ton of production on it, like just shitloads of production added to it to give it the illusion of being different or unique or even creative. And it's like, you know, I think that this section would be more boring without all of the production, but I also think that all of that production is just kind of spice on what is a pretty normal generic meal, you know? And I think that like looking at something as unique as Chimera, which I was just playing, like having like you know, it's one of those things where like on one hand with LosT, with Bring Me the Horizon, they've had to add all this crazy production and randomness and starting and stopping and cutting out all the ambience. They have to do all of this stuff to make what is a pretty generic bridge sound more interesting. And meanwhile, you have Chimera, which is just drums and guitars. And the composition is so compelling and so interesting that while there are a few small production things happening, they don't really need to do that because it's so good. It's interesting and creative. So it's like, yeah, to me, all of their the production on LosT just highlights how normal it is compared to something like Chimera. So yeah, I just wanted to talk a little bit about that, about like this generic formula of like, yeah, the bass drum has to follow the guitar, the rhythm guitar every single time. And the only thing the rhythm guitar is good for is it's like, that's nonsense. So yeah, cool. That's my rant on that. So yeah, I know I've been talking a lot, but that's essentially the end of the song. You know, we get almost the end of the song, right? So we get to the soft bridge, you know, at 2:35. Let's see, where is it? Let's just play this real quick. So there's like soft bells and a slow filter being opened up. Hear that? And so again, you know, we bring all the energy down just to make it smash back up. It's all about intensity, all about intensity. So yeah, I think this is actually a pretty big letdown personally. So this little section here, because I think this is the perfect spot where he could have sang something new. And so let me talk about this. And this is the last like big point I want to make on this song. The artistic journey of a song. So I was talking earlier about like the ebb and flow of intensity and how that's kind of natural in art and music. But the big thing that I wanted to get at is that they're supposed to mean something. Like there's supposed to be purpose to the ebb and flow, right? So they're supposed to take you on some type of a journey, and then the end of the song or movie or book or story, right? You actually end up in a different place than what you started. That's the whole point of it existing, right? Is to show you some type of transformation or journey. Now you can play with this formula or this idea by saying like, oh, everyone ends up in the same place, right? Like Seinfeld famously did that, where like you had these characters who go through all of this crazy shit, and then at the end they didn't learn a damn thing. And it's like a bit of a stark moment. It's humorous, but it's also like kind of dismal, and it's interesting, right? Because you actually look down on those characters a little bit. I think the last scene of Seinfeld is them in a jail cell complaining about the exact same thing they complained about in the very first episode. And so it's like, that's a reminder of like, you know, don't be like those people. You don't want to be like them. So with that said, the goal of good art, not that Seinfeld isn't good art, but the goal of art and what it normally does is shows you what you should be like by taking you on some type of a journey and teaching you something. And that's the point of these ebbs and flows and intensity, right? One of my favorite quotes is from Sting, actually. Look, you know, Sting from The Police, and his quote is, "The bridge is therapy." So this quote is really good because it's a very concise way of explaining that the bridge is where you change things. That's where the change occurs. Give me one moment. So the lyrics in the bridge should actually change the nature of the song. It should change the narrator. It should, you know, make clear the theme, not change the theme necessarily, but that is where, or sorry. Yeah. Make clear the nature of the song. I think I said the change. Yeah. So the bridge is where you reveal the nature of the song. What is the change that is going to happen to the narrator? What is the theme, etc.? It doesn't necessarily have to be like happy or relieving or anything. In fact, the theme of the song can be tension and depression or something like that. But the bridge is, you know, if we compare it to a story, it's the second act low point, the moment where the protagonist learns something at his or her lowest moment. And that bridge is essentially the point in the song where you can give even the most shallow song a little bit of depth and meaning. Like, for example, like I just did a breakdown of Machine Gun Kelly's Vampire Diaries, right? And that bridge did exactly what a bridge should do. It resolved the conflict in that song. I'm not going to talk about that in depth. I did, go listen to that breakdown. It's a good one. So yeah, that's what a bridge's purpose is. I can give this song some credit by saying like the breakdown does work as a moment of catharsis to some extent. Talking about like its purpose in the theme of the song and the structure of the song, right? It is a moment of catharsis. It's like a climactic explosion of pent up energy, right? But that's really about it. The lyrics don't really change. I mentioned that the verse 2 lyrics are really verse 2 lyrics are the last new information. The song ultimately leaves the listener right back where they started. There's no change in the lyrics or the music after the breakdown. Everything that you've heard up to this point, you've already heard everything. So there's no real reason to finish out the song other than you just want to enjoy the song, right? Now you could say, but there's no change. Nothing happens. You're just back where you started. And I think it's a little bit of a letdown. Now you could say that that's like intentional, that they did it because the listener will probably still feel lost even after the song, and that like just having the breakdown doesn't resolve your problems, but it does provide like an element of emotional catharsis for a while. And maybe that's what music is all about, right? But here's my counterpoint to that. I think that you could still emphasize that point of like you're still lost and you're still in the same place. While still like you could actually emphasize that point more with new lyrics. Like if that's your theme, right? If that's your idea, which is like you're lost and you're having a breakdown, but and you go through this song, but ultimately this song isn't what's going to resolve it. You're still going to feel lost at the end. If that's your theme that you're choosing, you could actually emphasize that. So instead of saying like, why am I this way over that, soft bridge, you could, just for an example, this is not good, but this is just an example. You could say like, you could be like, but I am still this way, or something like that, right? Like just a little change. But think about how impactful that would be, like to have, the chorus is, why am I this way? And then like, at the end you say like, I am still this way, or I can't help being this way, or something like that, right? And it's like just a little change like that after the breakdown. Like you have the super intense breakdown and then it's just like, I'm still the same, I am still the same. Just a little change, like you have all the energy and then nothing's changed, which would be your theme, right? Your theme is that this song isn't going to solve all your problems, and so you could emphasize that and really drive that home with a lyrical change. And it's like, I know I'm like fan fictioning a little bit right now, but it's like I'm just trying to illustrate that with a little extra thought put into the lyrics and like in the theme and what you're trying to convey with this song, and with little changes, like small changes, you can actually like seriously expand the thematic depth of your song. Like one line literally can make all of the difference. So yeah, in general, like I just think that that's when art's at its best, is when these build up and releases of tension happen for a reason. The artist is taking the audience on a journey where they can learn something and experience something by the end, hopefully about themselves, and invoke a change within themselves, or at least something to think about, right? Like something for their mind to gnaw on for a bit. Even if that what you give them is an awareness that they're still the same after the song, at the end of the work of art. Like self-awareness is actually still a change, like or heightened self-awareness is still a change. So yeah, I don't think that this song delivers on that. I think it actually drops the ball on the theme. It's like, what are you saying? Like your life just sucks. Is that it? And you're going to break down because of it? And it's like, there's no, it doesn't have anything to say about it. It just says it. It just explains the life and how he's depressed and all the problems, but then it doesn't actually tell you any way to like deal with it, or any solution, or that there is no solution, or that you're not going to deal with it with a song or a breakdown. Like the breakdown's not going to fix it. It's just, yeah, I'm depressed and I'm going to break down. That's it. So yeah, it's not, it's kind of shallow. It doesn't go anywhere. So yeah, that's and I mean, really, that's kind of the end. I mean, the final chorus, there's no lyrical changes. It's just repeated. There's some slight melodic changes, but nothing really impactful. And then it ends with this kind of relatively nonchalant LosT. Here, I'll play it for you real quick. Yeah, so it's like he says, I guess there's no remedy, own worst enemy, I'm so terribly lost. But again, that was the same lyrics from the second verse. So there's no change in the second chorus. So there's no change. So where are we going? We're going nowhere. We went nowhere with the bridge. And I guess maybe you could say that's the theme. There's no remedy. You're just going to be lost forever. It's like, fine, I guess. What's the point of the bridge then? Why'd we even need that breakdown? Because it's cool. Okay, fine. So yeah, and then we just get back into the intro synth, and then it ends, which honestly, like, it's kind of funny. That seems to just emphasize that nothing changed from the song. Like nothing changed. It's again just kind of disappointing to me, right? And we're just right back where we started. And again, you can say, like, I've already discussed this, but like, you can say, well, that's the theme, Cameron, but like, they don't really make that clear. And they could have emphasized that more, and they could actually, it didn't have to be the theme. Like, they could actually say something about being lost. Like, what does it mean to be lost, and what can you do about it? How do you get out of it? What do you do? No. Now I understand it's a fun song. And that it's not meant to be, well, I don't know. Is it meant to be taken seriously? Should we take this song seriously? Like, to me, you should take all the songs seriously that you listen to, but yeah, I just, it leaves me kind of disappointed. Like, okay, yeah, I listened to the song. There's no real takeaway. It's just like self-loathing, which kind of brings me to my final thoughts, right? So let's talk about it. To me, as I've said before, this type of self-loathing has just gotten so old in metal. We used to write these epic poems about kings and warlords and like warmongers and politicians and the earth and the universe and space and technology and everything in between, right? Like, all of it, right? Metal it is the genre with the most opportunity for variation. You can't write a song about like the heat death of the universe in the country genre, right? Like, you can't write a country song like that. You can't write a jazz song. I mean, maybe you could, maybe some people could, but you couldn't do it the same way as a metal song, right? So it's like, we have so much opportunity for variation and storytelling, musically and lyrically. It would be really nice if we embraced that a little bit more. But nowadays I see modern artists like, Sleep Token, Falling in Reverse, Era, Spirit Box, Bring Me the Horizon, like these artists, and it's like they are just obsessed with themselves and their feelings. It's the only topic they have. And even on a song like this, which I think musically is great and it has so much imagery and it's so vivid of a song, right? And there's so much here to talk about. And the theme of this song of like feeling lost in the world, there's so much you could do with that. And then, ultimately it's shallow. They don't have anything to say about being lost. They are just complaining about being lost. It's like, we could have had so much depth here, and that's what's lacking. We don't do anything with these ideas, even when they just talk about themselves. So not only are we not embracing the full like scope of our topics that we could sing about and talk about in metal, but we're like not even doing like feelings and emotions in our own personal lives and things like that very well. To me, most of these songs from these artists, like Sleep Token, for example, they set up all of this imagery of Arcadia and then write songs about how, oh, I know these chords are boring and I know I should be touring. It's like, why did you just take me out of the setting that you created? You created Arcadia. I wanted to go through an adventure in Arcadia. Why are you taking me back out of that? Why are you taking me out of that back into the real world to complain about how you wish you should be, or you think you could be touring and you're just depressed as a songwriter? Like I get it that I understand that a lot of people really like that and they want to know Vessel's personal life, but it's like, you had the opportunity to tell a story within this setting. You created the setting. This would be much more unique. Why? Why didn't you do it? And that's the problem. It's like these songs from these artists, like a lot of these modern metal artists, it's like they're shallow. They're typically devoid of like a coherent theme or takeaway or like real thematic depth. And a lot of them honestly are just like, they do the whole thing of like, we're going to do something cool just for the sake of being cool. Like I think about, a song that comes to mind is like Sun Killer by Spirit Box. It's like, it's kind of cool. The idea of like some entity that kills the sun, they don't do anything with it. It doesn't go anywhere. They just say a couple lines about like space and the sun and all of that, and then it just ends. And it's like, why'd you just leave that on the table? Like you just left so much opportunity for like lyrics and themes. What does it mean to want to kill the sun? Like imagine a man who was so hateful, like a Cain and Abel, right? Like your Cain is so angry at the world and the universe that he actually wants to kill the sun. Like you could talk about rage and hate and anger. Nope, we're not doing any of that. So yeah, I think lyrical content aside, this song is pretty good. It's well produced. They clearly went over it with a fine-tooth comb and made sure that every single second was like super interesting and engaging. But ultimately, it's kind of like a modern Marvel movie or something, right? Like it's just got all of this production and effects and sounds and noises, but it's all kind of there to mask the fact that the song is ultimately kind of empty. It doesn't really have anything to say, anything meaningful to say. It doesn't really, the compositions themselves are not particularly interesting. Notice how every single section, the noise and the production was either flat long notes, consistent notes like da 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 da, or like noises that had imperceptible rhythms or melodies, right? So there's no real melody. You could say like na 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 na, but even that's not really like a memorable melody. It's more of just this kind of, repeated. It's more of a motif. I would call it like a sonic motif rather than like a melodic motif, because it's just a dun 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 dun. So it's not like the song. It's not. I wouldn't call it like the main melody of the song, right? So yeah, it's a bit of a bummer seeing all of this work put into something like this and have it really not, have it just ultimately be kind of meaningless fun, which again, there's nothing wrong with fun, but you can make fun songs that have meaning. It's not, you can have both. So anyway, that's it. We made it to the end. Yeah, that's it. I think I covered pretty much everything. If you've stuck around, thank you, appreciate it. I have a little template that I do at the end of the songs, or at the end of the breakdowns, just to summarize everything in a nice, neat little bow. I'm going to go through that, and we will see. We'll close this episode out. It's been a long one. It's actually been much longer than I thought it was going to be, 2 hours. So yeah. The purpose of this song, that's the first thing I like to talk about, which is this is an anthem that provides emotional catharsis for those who feel lost in their lives. It's also like super designed to be a single, very ADHD, short attention span people, like, hey, stay interested in this, please. But ultimately it's about, providing some level of emotional catharsis for those who feel lost in their lives, which I think a lot of people do right now. The genre is like metal mixed with hyperpop. Kind of an interesting mix. It's positive, happy metal, but also depressing too. The song structure is super standard, nothing out of the ordinary whatsoever. Just verse, pre-chorus, verse, verse, pre-chorus, chorus, verse, pre-chorus, chorus, bridge 1, bridge 2, or breakdown, third chorus, outro. So yeah, nothing crazy. Compositionally, I just addressed this, but like nothing in particular stands out, other than the breakdown, right? Like the breakdown is obviously more musically intricate than anything else on the song, but everything else, there's no like real memorable melody aside from like the vocal melodies. The rhythms of everything are actually pretty basic too. Even the breakdown, I mean, I think to the average listener, the breakdown is cool and complex. To me as a guitarist, it's really not. It's dun 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 dun. It's yeah, like standard stuff, right? Standard metal guitar playing. So yeah, there's just all this work that's put into the production, but the actual compositional elements, like the melodies and the rhythms, are pretty basic. I will say the vocal melodies are all strong, but in some spots they just come way too close to MCR. My Chemical Romance, just like almost copying them verbatim. Mix wise, it's like a super overwhelming ADHD mix. Like it is just like designed to keep you like all these sounds and noises and mix things and transitions. It's all crazy. It just throws a whole lot of sound at you and totally embraces that, which is fine. I think it fits the theme. It's a very lush, full mix. It's very packed in with lots of noise, right? Lyrically, really it's the musings of a depressed, lonely man lamenting the state of his life and himself, but with a bit of a nonchalant, humorous tone to it. He is lost. He doesn't know what to do. He's not, he's depressed and his dog died and all that, but also he's just like, whatever, I don't care anymore. But if he keeps it up, he's going to break down. It's like, and that's the thing. That's kind of the tragedy, which brings me to the theme, right? The tragedy is like this song. Ultimately, all it really says is like sometimes we find ourselves lost in our lives, and nothing. Like it just sucks. Like there's nothing else to say. It doesn't say anything else about it. There's no remedy. That's the closest I could maybe get to some resolution to this idea of feeling lost. It just doesn't really do anything for the listener to try to change or improve or anything. The song is ultimately just about the situation, but it drops the ball. So yeah, final verdict, like artistic merit of the song, in my opinion, despite a lot of really great production, whole lot of good production, and solid performances from everyone. Like all the instruments sound really good, and there's a lot of like exciting ideas presented. Guitar wise, there's some cool moments. Synths are cool. The drums do a lot of cool stuff. Ultimately though, the song kind of just feels hollow. I think once the initial wow factor of it wears off, because it is just like throwing the fucking book at you, right? There's really not a whole lot to it. Like I didn't really have much to say about the guitar parts. They just start playing rhythm chords. The drum parts, there's a few spots where like there's cool stuff, but like there's not too much to say. It's pretty flat. Lyrically and thematically, it just says that life sucks and that's that. And we're just gonna party, I guess. That breakdown, there's just not much to say. So to me, it's a pretty weak message, if there is even a message to say at all. I mean, I don't even know what the message would be. So it's a letdown. It's cool. It's a cool song, and it's fun, and I understand why people would like to listen to it and put it on every now and then. But as like a work of art, I think it just falls a little flat and misses the mark a bit. So those are my thoughts. Over the course of 2 hours. Woo. But yeah, I hope that y'all enjoyed it. I'm sure there will be people who don't agree with me on everything here, but that's okay. If you disagree, leave a comment. Let me know. I really like engaging in the comments. Honestly, that's I would love to eventually turn this into a stream where I could actually interact with people live, but we're just not there yet. I don't have the views and subscribers, which was why if you made it this far in the video, you must have at least found some of the stuff I was saying interesting. So please give a subscribe and a like and all that. I would really appreciate it. Yeah, one of the reasons why I do these long breakdowns is because I just love music and I want to talk about it. And I would like to find people who feel similarly and who would like to, and I want to talk to those people and I want to have discussions about it. So if you disagree with me on anything in this video, leave a comment. Please be, I know it's YouTube. I know it's the fucking internet. I've been around long enough to know how it goes, but I would appreciate it if we kept things respectful and just talk about ideas and kept things rational. You know, there's a reason I use Greek architecture for the whole theme of the show. I want us to be smart, and I want us to be clear-headed when we discuss things and when we listen and experience art, because that's how we raise our standards and by extension get better art. So hope y'all enjoyed it. It was a fun episode. I actually did enjoy making notes on this one. And yeah, talk to y'all later. See you in the next one. Peace.